I'm joined by Ronny Bennic, who is now Ronny Williamson, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And some time ago, in 2012, I believe it was, there was an incident involving Truthwar, who is known as Scott David Peters. Scott David Peters is now a convicted felon child pornography distributor who pled guilty and will be sentenced in September. Right now, it is about 9:30 or so on Friday, August 21st, 2015. But down under in Sydney, it is 11 p.m. on Friday, right? Is that correct? Or 11:30?
11:34.
11:34. So we've got this time difference here. But we had discussed this back in the day when it occurred that once this thing all came out in the wash and was, pretty much solidified as far as all the information is factual and we have all of the documentation, that we would go on record as to what happened. It was a pretty tumultuous time, if you recall, Ronnie, wasn't it?
Oh, yes. And it was really difficult to be able to you were the first port of call. I had to let you know.
Right. Well, let's
And
let the people know what actually happened in your words, because I again, you let me know and then we set, of course, this chain of events that we'll be going into. But what actually occurred um, that night on Skype?
okay, well, it was probably about mid-afternoon to early afternoon for me at the time, and we'd finished the show outside the margins. And then often, some of the guests would hang back and we'd have a chat after the show. And anyway, Marlena had been staying back a couple of times, even after I had left the the program, and they obviously got on really well and so forth. And this particular day, I stayed back. We were having a chat, the whole three of us, and I kind of sensed that there was a little kind of bit of a um, how can you put it, cat and mouse infatuation going on there between them.
All right, let's go into the details here. First of all, your show Outside the Margins came on before, or generally before my show, uh, We Are Change Connecticut at the time, on informedradio.com, which I had recently purchased and was the owner and operator along with my partner, Vinny Be the Truth, Vinny Blazon. And we would often segue into each other's shows, if you recall. We did that quite a
Yeah,
bit, and I enjoyed that. And maybe one day we could somehow pull that off again. It was wonderful, and it was a great time. It was the beginning of my whole experience with internet radio, and you guys really helped me along a lot. And some of the subjects that you went into were, unknown to me, and it was very interesting. And we had a couple of very interesting guests. I was a guest on your show a few times, and you were on ours. And it
yes.
was a great little alliance that we had. And then we had these people which were friends. They weren't really part of the show. Marlena is one of them. And then there was Truthwar, David Scott Peters, the felon. We did not know he was a felon. We did not know that he was a basically a pedophile, child pornography
Well, as far as
trafficker.
we th- well, as far as we thought, he was a friend and he was a technician, and
He
and
was the
he
technician. He did the backline work for Informed Radio. In other words, when people would call in, he would pipe the phone calls through. He would play the music, do all the editing like that on the live editing that
yeah.
occurred. Because this was again a live show. Right now, we're taping this particular broadcast. But so just so that people can understand what's happening. So we were going along pretty strong. I know we must have done, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 shows. I don't know how many up until this point. And we often segued right into your show. And then one night, very late at night, after midnight, at least in the States, after midnight, you were having a conversation with Marlena and Truth War, David Scott Peters, on Skype. And it was a Skype conversation with chat, with written chat, where he actually incriminated himself in the chat. But let's go into your experience, what happened that night.
Yeah. Okay. So uh, basically, I picked up on this flirtation situation, and I will say flirtation, I guess. um, and I can remember saying something in the lines of um, to Truthwar, um, do you want children? And I think maybe that triggered.
That was the trigger when you asked him if he wanted to be a father. Wow,
Well,
interesting.
that's what I meant. But what I said is, do you want children? But I
Right.
meant, do you?
You
But I
meant if he
meant,
wanted
do
to be
you
a
want to be
father.
a, do you want to father children?
You don't want to fondle children. You want to father them, right?
Yes. And anyway, that was kind of overlooked. But um, then next minute he shared his Skype because he went to go and make a cuppa or some type of drink up over near the sink, and I remember his living area rather well. Um, and then he come back to the screen and was still, just generalized chatting. And then he started to screen share because it's possible to screen share on Skype. I don't know if everyone knows, but you can actually screen share. So right now, Howard, I could actually, whatever I'm doing on my computer, you can actually see on yours.
Right. Yeah. You could share the screen.
Yeah. And next minute, he was just like going through some, like pictures that were, no, kind of artistic, kind of. And then I don't know whether, and then he got up again, but I think he may have forgotten that he was still screen sharing.
I think that's
Oh,
probably what ended up happening. Yes.
yeah. And then because we saw these folders he was flicking through, and, and I don't know whether he was kind of like starting to flirt with both of us, but I kept it fairly narrow. I was probably more egging them on, really, as in, oh, you're going to meet up, and like blah blah blah, and just having fun with them, like no one. Well, we didn't take it seriously, me and Marlena, really, and we had a few laughs, and the next minute he pulls up this folder and shows like women, older women
Hmm.
in sexual positions, but not everything hanging out or anything, but just very what's the word?
Seductive.
Um, productive. Well, I'm looking for this word. Predogat. No. Yeah, okay, seductive.
Okay.
um, and then those images started to go into um, smaller, younger women. And then next minute, there was a naked child in a pool setting holding a male's arm, which was, you could see it was a male because the arm was quite hairy.
Hmm.
And I just thought, no, no, that's too much for me. Like, this is, I don't know where this is going, but
Right.
no. Um, and I just cut the call.
Hmm.
Apparently, Marlena was also very upset about it. Um, and had a verbal go at him, and then it went to text, and then it went back to calls, and then went back to text, and then he was like claiming it was art. When we were saying no, it looked like pornography,
It was
child
not art.
pornography to us, and not acceptable to us. And
He argued very, very feverishly through the chat because he's arguing that it wasn't, that it was not pornography, that it was art, and that I would agree with him. Even he said, didn't he?
oh, and he actually went. Well, Melina um, even said, like, we're going to report you, and he was egging it on.
He
Like, it's
certainly was
really
egging her on and saying, "Go ahead, report me. That I didn't do anything wrong." Because he, in his mind, he truly, to this day, doesn't think he's done anything wrong.
uh,
It's
apparently
sad.
not. But we didn't at that point know that he was distributing or anything. Like, we can only account for what we saw, and Melina saw more images than what I did.
Mm.
Um, the couple I did see, and that last one just like, no way. And the ironic thing too is that Truthwar was quite aware, because we had talked about it on several shows, of our history with
Yeah,
child
let
abuse.
the listeners know a little bit about the backstory. How actually almost sadistic it was for him to do this to you, knowing that you both had a history of incidents.
Yes, yes. So I don't know whether he was trying to trigger us, even, like,
Hmm.
it's it's a couple of years ago now, and it's hard to speak word for word, but it was very odd, and that's which is why I had to let you know first thing. um Obviously, well, I think I may have even tried to message you straight away, or
You did. You left. There was a message there, and then of course the first thing I did was contact the Manitoba authorities, what would be the equivalent of the FBI in Canada, and I gave them the information. And I was contacted, and so were you and Marlena were contacted by a detective, Cam Hyde of the Winnipeg Police Department, who subsequently went into an investigation. And we went through a whole series of things because, as I mentioned, I had purchased the radio station domain and the servers and everything only a few months prior.
yeah.
And I didn't even have codes to the servers. I didn't have anything to just to shut them down or anything. Even I couldn't get back my any of this equipment. We never thought this would happen, of course. So we did
Mm,
put it all out there, and you were investigated. The Connecticut State Police came to my office at work and took a statement from me, and the
yeah.
authorities and took a statement from you. Everyone's statement was taken.
Yeah, well, Cam Hyde contacted my local police station in Australia, so I had to go in there and make my statement and identify him through. They showed me several photos, and I had to pick out which who he was.
Right.
Um, so, but the hardest part of it all was um, Cam Hyde told us to carry on the shows as normal.
Right, and that was a key aspect because the investigation went on for several weeks, and yes, we did shows, and it was very stressful to do shows, knowing that he's being investigated, knowing that this is part of the authorities' plan to take him down, and he did start talking about certain things, and he was starting to open up a little bit about things on the air. Um, try to bring up subject matter that might, I was talking about child sex trafficking and that's the most ironic thing is that I've done many shows and he was the backline guy on child sex trafficking and the international sex trafficking ring that's promulgated through the United Nations and other organizations that are supposedly to help children, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's beyond ironic. It's murderous in the irony that he turns out to be a pedophile, but doesn't believe himself to be one. That's the amazing thing. A little background about what happened with Truthwar. We set up this entire thing. So we were doing shows, and they were being monitored as they were getting evidence. They
Yeah.
finally got a search warrant, and we knew they were doing a search warrant, and they said today is going to be the day we're going to take him down. And it was the night of a show, and he wasn't he was not on the show that day because they arrested him. They also found like 50 pot plants that he was growing, a lot of pornography, and that he was actually connected with a ring of other pornographers or distributing this pornography. And
Mm.
and that all came out soon after. What amazes
Yeah.
me most about the Canadian authorities is that his mother, who paid his bills for him, was an educator. She was a teacher. She allowed him to live this lifestyle. Basically, he was growing pot, doing backline for truth radio shows, for alternative radio, and and hiding this tremendous secret. And I'm
Wasn't
sure that his mother must have
did
had some knowledge of his activities.
yeah, didn't Cam actually reveal that he did have mental illness issues?
Yes, in fact, it was determined that the mother was very very certain through medical exams and treatments that Scott David Peters went through that he was a paranoid schizophrenic, that he actually was a schizophrenic, which to some
Mm.
extent explains maybe why he didn't believe that he would do such a thing. But it just makes this whole thing even worse. Now, the fact that he's a schizophrenic, the fact that he was engaged in child pornography, actually, if you do a lot of research, and again, I've done many shows on this and years of research, that he was probably a victim of sexual abuse himself. Many times, abusers have been abused, or people that find this to be entertaining to them. Whereas the victims, a lot of times, goes the other way too. That they're traumatized by things that have happened to them with family members in the past and things like that, which happens.
And can affect relationships long term as well,
Yes, and
or
self-esteem
different
and everything
types of
else that goes along with
yeah.
it. So I'm not so sure that he wasn't a victim of abuse himself, but I never had any inclination or any even iota of thought that he could do something like this or be like that. He was such a soft-spoken, quiet, very
Yeah.
I mean, professional is the right word. I mean, he was always on time. He did everything properly. He was a great technician. I have to give him credit for that. He was amazing. Um,
Yeah,
and I
he
was so
was.
stunned. I was shocked. But you have to do the right thing if you know something evil is going on. The whole idea of what we're doing or trying to do is raise awareness to the hidden evils of the world
Yeah.
and the protected
What
evils. And so the
what
first thing
what
I did was
made it
call the police.
yeah, what made it worse though, when we were told to keep our mouths shut about the whole situation, carrying on as normal, but
Hmm.
who but Marlena spread it all over Facebook, started contacting all my guests, and basically was giving them the opinion, because we were carrying on with the show, that we were condoning pedophilia.
Right. She is she again a troubled woman that this Marlena was, and I mean I spoke to Cab Hine about this directly. He spoke to her. She just couldn't keep her mouth shut. She had to go off spewing because that's what she does. That's what she does. She spews all of this, and it's all about her own anxieties, her own thoughts, her own feelings, making out like everybody, this is the way it is. And it wasn't. Certainly not. We were informed, we were told to continue as nothing's going wrong so they can get more evidence so that they can obtain a search warrant, which took a few weeks. And a
Yeah.
lot of, we got a lot of static. I mean, a lot of people, when this all went down, and it was revealed that he was you know, he was arrested. That that we set him up and that we did all these terrible things and that we're the problem. You know, that's how bizarre this whole situation became. And you had a lot more static than I did from people that were in your circle.
Oh, well, we had um, two regular shows, one UFO show a month and one archaeology show a month. The UFO show were the first to drop out. And then we had other guests in between, of course. But the
It's like she was
fact that
poisoning you.
oh,
Putting out all these lies to poison anybody, coming on your
well, she
show,
even
and
tried
it's a very well received show. It went on for
she
a long,
even
long
done it to
time.
you. She even was doing it to you.
Oh yes, I know. Yeah, she was trying her best to stop, and then of course we made a video about this, and she had it taken down from YouTube because she said it invaded her privacy, which is insane. But that was how Marlena rolled, and that's and it always makes you wonder. I said, well, we told Cam Hyde that there's something not right about her. She's got some mental issues, and she clearly did have mental issues, and could not understand this very simple plan, and just it almost as if she was saying we're promoting pornography, but she was actually promoting it herself. It's really bizarre.
Well, she was absolutely sabotaging
Sabotaging,
the
the right word.
the investigation. She was totally she could have risked uh, that whole investigation.
She certainly did put it all at risk, and thankfully it never, nothing came about it that could have endangered the investigation, because he could have gotten rid of all of his evidence. He could have, if he started catching on, Truthwar, also known as Scott David Peters, would have gotten rid of his servers. Who knows what he would have done? I was concerned that the servers that I bought contained this information because I never had physical possession of them. But that, of course, did not come to be the case. It wasn't what was done, and he, of course, was let out on bail. Let's get back to this whole thing. So he's locked up. His mother, who's paid all his bills and took care of him for all his life. This is a man in his 40s. Okay. Um, at that point in time, they let him out on bail. He didn't spend a day in jail. Not one day in jail. For like 3 years almost, right? It's in almost 3 years that before we were actually then subpoenaed by the Manitoba authorities, and we were
Yeah,
told they were going to fly us to Canada to testify.
yeah. I was actually subpoenaed on New Year's Eve
So was
last
I. We
year,
were both subpoenaed at the same time.
and I was like, I was like, my God, this was years ago. It's like I
And
thought,
he'd been out all that time. That's the bizarreness of the Canadian justice system. Talk about the wheels of justice moving slowly. They don't move at all. It's
um,
outrageous.
but apparently um, he was at the time defending himself.
Yes, he was defending himself, and that was again, just to show how disturbed that he really was. Finally, as we were preparing to, now we were going to be doing a Skype or a video conference. We managed to talk the at least I did. I managed to. I wasn't able to leave the country and go to a trial in Winnipeg, Canada. That would have been actually happening now in April, I think, or May. It would have happened. And I certainly didn't have the resources to survive that. I know that they offered us money, they offered us, and I'm like, wow, that's insane. Why don't you just do it Skype and save you guys tons of money? Put it in
Well,
the.
I
It took
asked that.
a lot of discussion to get them to actually do that, and then they
Yeah, well,
agreed.
the detective here, because of our time zone situation, We weren't able to do that, so they were flying myself and the detective that took my statement over there.
Right. That was the plan that they had for us too, and I managed to
Yeah,
negotiate that they could do mine through Skype. But then,
yeah,
thankfully, Truthwar, Scott David Peters did get an attorney, probably at his mother's request, and the attorney suggested that due to the evidence, overwhelming evidence, that it'd be best for him to plead guilty.
and the
And
fact
he,
that they were going to the full extent of flying an eyewitness over
yeah,
from
yeah, pretty
Australia.
pretty much, he was done. And he did. He pled guilty and will be sentenced in early September. He's facing a lot of years in jail. But who knows with this criminal justice system they have over there? It's not any better than it is here in the States, and I'm sure in Australia. It's all under the British Crown. We all know that. Yeah. Oh boy, it's
Well,
unbelievable.
I tell you, you'd be in a lot more trouble if you had possession of 50 plants over here.
I bet. I bet that's true. But that's a separate issue. We're talking about he had two separate trials.
Yeah, yeah,
And by pleading guilty, that stopped us from having to testify and
yeah.
go through all that. Drudging this whole thing up in a courtroom would have been traumatic for all of us.
Um, when I was just I couldn't speak, and I was supposed to do a show. I just couldn't. And you know what? I've just found it very difficult. And I loved doing the shows. I loved, talking about all those topics, and it's really put a bitter, sour taste in my mouth of going back there. Hopefully, I will. Um, but it really has. It took so much passion away from me, so much, enjoyment out of my life, that was just taken away by that incident with Truthwar.
No, it definitely was a traumatic time for us all, and it was just unbelievable. Uh, I never did get the servers back. I don't think I ever will. It doesn't really matter. I ended up defuncting. The station is defunct. Informed Radio no longer exists. All my work is now on YouTube. Truth Talk News is the channel name. Truth Talk News or Howard Nima. Got two
Yep.
channels. The channels do great. I get 100,000 views a month. So we're getting this information out that needs to get out. But yeah, we all had the wind taken out of our sails with that whole thing. And I wish there was some way that we could have stopped it in the first place. I mean, it just shows that these people that are these abusers and these people that are involved in child pornography are among us. I had a guy that did work on my house. It turned out that he molested an 11-year-old girl. You know, and they're everywhere. They're everywhere.
Yep.
These pedophiles are everywhere. If you go on the internet and they show up these little red dots, put up, pedophiles and sex offenders in the United States, and the whole country looks like a red dot because they're everywhere. Your neighbors. We have a neighbor down the block that's another one that a woman that was a bus driver that abused a child. So this is nothing. This is nothing like a small problem. This is a huge problem that the media just doesn't really want to address. The court system doesn't quite know what to do with it. They put these people away, then they get out. They get these lawyers and these shrinks and all of these all these theories behind why people do this. It's like the Kinsey sex report. It's just all this bullshit.
Yep.
Really what it is it's a demoralization of our society that the most vulnerable become the victims.
Yep.
To
In saying that, though, Australia has had a big investigation within the churches.
Well, that doesn't surprise me at all. The churches are full of it, and I'm glad that at least they're doing something about it there, because apparently here a couple of priests, they can make the newspaper and that's it, as if there's nothing else happening. But they're everywhere. So tell me a little bit about this pedophile case with the churches in Australia. What are they doing? I didn't even hear of this.
Well, there has been, well, I don't know at the end of what's happened to them, but I do know there's a lot of investigations and a lot of arrests and a lot of people coming forward. It's funny how one or two will come forward and then everyone else, comes forward, So,
Yeah, that is how it happens. People get the courage that they see others. Yeah.
yeah, and they're not the only one that's happened to, and it's right through the whole religious community, and that's really sad because
Is it not just the Catholic Church? Because the Catholic Church is notorious for it.
uh yeah, and also some other
Other denominations?
yeah. So
Yeah.
um
Well, pedophiles go with their children, and in churches there are children. There's Sunday school, there's religious instruction, there's people bring their children to try to bring up God. I think it's even wider than that. These people are, in my research, these people, a lot of them are literally,
well,
Luciferian Satanists.
it's certainly not just the altar boys anymore.
It's not just the altar boys, you're right. And there's all sorts of, ritual abuse that's done. Again, this doesn't get a lot of media attention. A little bit more outside of the States than in the States, but boy, they cover this stuff up real good. Hey, did you hear about what happened with Ashley Madison? Did you ever hear of that website, Ashley Madison?
Not off my hand, no.
Ashley Madison is a website, Ronnie, that you go to if you want to cheat on your spouse. And they just got busted because, well, they didn't get busted, but somebody hacked them, who I don't know who. We don't know. Nobody knows. But they were hacked, and the names of all of these people were released. People that were getting hooked up through Ashley Madison. And it turns out like 15,000 of them are government people and politicians.
Oh, that wouldn't surprise me.
But it
That would not
surprises me
surprise.
that they would go to a website to cheat. That surprises me. But
Mm.
yeah, the corruption is outrageous, and hopefully this will make some people fall. The political system in this country is just a joke. We've got Hillary Clinton running again, trying to run for president, but meanwhile she's giving up secrets on her servers, and there's all sorts of political furor going over this. And other people would have been locked up for 12 years, but she's Hillary Clinton, So I think she's done politically, though. I think this has cooked her goose. So she was sending top secret emails through unsecured servers at an unsecure location, and that's a huge felony in this country. But again, these
Wow.
are the protected insiders, the protected ones.
Yep. Yeah.
One day the people will wake up and realize that those that are protected are the enemy. And we have to understand that, because if you and I can go out and steal a loaf of bread because you're hungry and end up in jail for a year, and these people can murder, rape, pillage, and they do. The Clinton family goes back to the cocaine smuggling that was occurring in Mena, Arkansas in the 1980s with Barry Seal and the CIA funding the Contras for this is nothing new. I mean, we have a criminal mafia that calls itself the government, and they
Mm.
do whatever they want, and they
But if
protect
you've
their
got if
own.
you've got if you've got the whistleblowers, they just disappear.
The whistleblowers disappear, or the people that are like 79 scientists in the last 10 years, high-level scientists involved in big pharma and radio and a lot of stuff with NASA. They're ending up dead. Doctors that are exposing the fact that vaccines are poisonous are ending up committing suicide after they go out and report this. Come on. There's
Hmm.
just an attack upon truth, attack upon freedom and liberty, and this is an international thing. I mean, look at Australia. You guys are no different than we are. Really, it's not. It's just a different you fly a different flag, but the same social control mechanisms, the same political corruption, the same
Hmm.
judicial corruption, the same criminal justice system applies. I mean, it's the same thing.
Yep.
The sun never
and the
sets over the British Empire.
and the media only let the mainstream know what they want them to know.
Only what they want them to know. And if you get any truth out there that actually exposes these criminals, it's a conspiracy theory. You
Yeah.
know? Oh, there's no, it's a conspiracy theory. Everything, every time these people are caught, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. It's
Well,
just, it's laughable.
isn't it against the law now in the States, uh, talking bad about their government?
They might be trying to do that, but look. We have freedom of speech in this country. We really have it. The
To a
people want to give it
degree.
up, but no, there are laws that are on the books that you can't yell at a politician like a mayor or the president even or anyone if you're within 50 feet of a state building. So in other words, if the governor is outside the state house and he's making a speech, you can't be within 50 feet or 50 yards yelling at him, which is silly. I mean,
Okay, but how about on social
there are
media?
free speech zones in America, which is hilarious. When there are
Even
people
on so,
protesting, they put a free speech zone.
even on social media, there's no repercussions.
Well, no, because you'll get blocked on Facebook because Facebook is owned by these criminals. I mean, it's unbelievable. Facebook is just a data mining tool so that the NSA, it helps the NSA find who they want to find. With all the stuff that's going on in the world, they're more interested in people that are against the secret government, that are running the show, that are bringing us into the New World Order, that are creating this one world society, this socialist society, and they'll target people who are exposing that. It just tells
Hmm.
you, it's just so obvious that the real truth is that we have a criminal government that has been hijacked by these elitists. They've been putting in their members for generations, and now they pretty much run the show, and they want us to believe all these lies. They want us to believe that if you're born in America and you came over the border 2 minutes ago and you gave birth the child is an American citizen. That's not true. But everybody in America, I mean 99.9%, Ivory Snow, believe that if an illegal comes to this country and gives birth, the child is a citizen, and that's not true. That is not what the 14th Amendment says. But they've gotten the people to believe the lies, and the lies the lies are painted as truth, and the truth are painted as conspiracy theories and lies. It is outrageous.
So that child that's born in America, doesn't it get a corporate certificate? If it's own little corporation's birth certificate.
Oh yeah, they like giving that to you, but technically they can't. But they can't. It's not. It goes. See that you hit it right on the head there, Ronnie. It's part of their little mafia because we are cattle. We are collateral for the bankers, and people don't understand that. The average person thinks that that's just oh that's a conspiracy theory. Well, it's not. It's not. The way that they figure out loans, the way they figure out how much a country's output can be made is through our population and how much they can tax, who they're going to tax, what they're going to do. And you are cattle. And it's the same thing in your country. It's no different in Australia. It makes you think. Why
Yep.
is why do all these countries do the same thing? Why do they all have a relationship with the British Crown? You're direct. You guys have a direct relationship. Canada has a
Yep.
direct relationship. But America, Australia, and Canada all have the same colors on their flag, do they not? It's the same flag,
Uh-huh.
just painted a different way. Because it is the same people behind it. It is still the British throne and the oligarchy that control everything. And now the Zionists are going wild in the Middle East, and Iran. We got a big pot. If we thought the pot was boiling over when we were doing shows 3 years ago, it's gotten unbelievably worse now.
Mm-hmm.
It really has. But this problem of pedophilia, it's everywhere. And now, do you know that there's gay marriage now is legal in most? Well, it was made the law of the land by the Supreme Court.
Well, it's
Um,
actually first legal in New Zealand, apparently.
I believe so, which is another one of the British possessions.
Uh-huh.
And
I
you
think
have this
we're
whole
I
go.
think we're passing it. I'm not quite sure whether we've actually passed it, but there's
Oh, you're working on it
um
too, right?
yeah.
Well, you know what this has done? NAMBLA, the North American Man Boy Love Association, and their ilk are now saying, well, listen, if gay marriage is a right, then I have a right to be a pedophile. This is my lifestyle. It's the way I live, and we need to legalize. We need to remove the age discrimination. That's how they call it for sex. In other words, you shouldn't have to be 18 to have sex legally. And they're really working on this. And you know something? You talk to these people, the sheeple out there, my friends that I've known for 40 years, unbelievable. Some of them just don't understand what's really going on. And they don't see that it's the decadence of it and the immorality of it is just unbelievable. And they say that'll never happen. Well, 20 years ago, they say gay marriage would never happen. They want to redefine what marriage is. I mean, I'm all for gay rights. I think everybody they should have the same civil rights. But marriage is between a man and a woman. It has always been that way. It was never meant to be any other way. And how can a minority of people create such a majority of opinion that it's such a good thing to do? Great propaganda, schools being indoctrinated with this crap that they call. Do you have Common Core education in Australia, Ronnie? Do you know what Common Core is?
Sorry?
Do you know what Common Core is? Common Core education?
Not in that phrase, no.
What
But
do they call
maybe
your
in,
education? What do they have there? Do they have a systemized cookie cutter education system in Australia?
yeah, we have a syllabus that we have to run to,
Yeah.
which is all lies, lies, and
I
more
know the
lies.
history is all, and it's funny, the history of the same lies in Australia as they say here. Isn't that
Yeah,
interesting?
yeah. Oh, well, it costs too much to rewrite the textbooks, wouldn't
Yeah,
it?
exactly. Exactly. It's
But
it's a very sad thing.
the younger folk are getting a lot more wise than what most think. You know, they are starting to, um, I'm going to use this expression, look beyond the margins,
There you go.
outside of,
Look
outside,
outside the
outside,
margins.
yeah, outside the box, and they are questioning a lot more than what we ever were allowed to. You know, when in our age group, you know, if we asked a question, we were basically told to keep our mouth shut. You know, how dare we question?
That's true.
That's
My son is 16, and he's so frustrated with the education system. He's a very bright kid. He's very well read, and he knows what's going on in the world. And yeah, it is. He's called it as it is. It's Soviet style indoctrination. They teach you facts. They teach you things that they want you to know, and no critical thinking. When they give you a position, a point of view, most of the teachers in his school are socialists. They're like totally straight for it, and they're right out about it. And they're talking about, well, right now, Planned Parenthood is in the news big time here. But right now, in his school, you know that you can go on your lunch break at school and go into the nurse's office and get contraceptives. And if you need an abortion, they'll provide you with a ride to the place to get it.
oh, you're joking.
I kid you not. It is a fact. So it's out of control. And Planned Parenthood, I don't know if this has made the news in Australia, but here they're actually harvesting organs from fetuses, some of which are still alive. I kid you
Oh,
not. So there are so many lies, so many deceptions. I mean, we literally live in Satan's kingdom. It is an evil world run by evil, megalomaniacal psychopaths
yep.
who
Even
believe
even in
themselves to
the
be the rulers of us all because of their bloodline and because of their intellect.
yeah, even in archaeology, they're covering up so much, eh?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
good because you have a lot of you have a lot of research in that end. I haven't done too much on that, but yes, we had a couple of people on. I know um, Ralph Ellis was an atheist that we had on once, and he opened my eyes to a whole bunch of things. But there's a lot of things like they cover up so much. These long-faced men people, like you were talking about, with the long heads,
yeah, elongated skulls. Yeah,
elongated skulls, 10, 15-foot tall people, 10-foot tall people that
yeah,
existed, you know.
yeah.
Um,
sound and frequency technology that could explain how huge rocks and pyramids were made.
Amazing. Who was
There's
the gentleman on
so
that you
much
had that was
this.
from the intelligence with the ship, with the Navy ship? He had with the equipment able to. He was talking about radio frequencies and things like that. Oh my God, he was excellent. I was on the show that it was your show, and
Uh,
he was the guest.
uh, um, Tom Casita. Uh, oh, jeez.
I
You're
think that's
testing
right.
my memory now.
I think that's right. The guy was brilliant, and I had put a couple links on my website. I got a website
Yeah.
now too, by the way, howardnema
And,
dot com.
and he was talking about um, different frequencies and the tuning forks and so forth. And
Yes,
yeah, yeah. Apparently, there's a guy over in New Zealand that made a device where you can just put it in water and boil the water like instantly.
amazing. But these things they keep away, like the combustion
Yep.
engine that works on water. The guy that invented that, they offered him a couple of $1 billion. He said, "Nope, I want to give this to the people for free." He ended up dead a couple of months later. So when people can't see what's really going on, I mean, it's unbelievable. They want us to be dumb sheep that just go to the slaughter when it's time, and to accept any tyranny in the middle of that, in between.
Well, well, any free energy is going to disrupt corporate, isn't it?
Yes, it is. That's why Tesla's energy, which is, you know, clearly able to not only, I mean, the whole world doesn't have to pay for electric.
Mm-hmm.
The whole world. And we can thank J.P. Morgan for saying, oh, no, we can't allow that. We have to figure out a way to profit that. We need to figure out a way to exploit humanity to our benefit while humanity thinks we're helping them. That is the New World Order in a nutshell. I mean, if you wanted a one sentence explanation, that's what it is. The elite wanting you to believe that what they do is helping you as they destroy you and destroy your progeny and dumb down the society so that they don't complain. They're too, give them circus and bread, keep them entertained. Don't let them think too much, because if they start thinking, they might figure out how badly we're all being misled, deceived, and truly, you know, slaughtered. I
Yep.
mean, cold
Yep. Yep.
between the pharmaceutical drugs that kill. How many people die in do you know the stats in Australia? Because I know the U.S. stats. 440,000 Americans on average die every year just by going to see a doctor about something, and they're treated properly, and they're given the supposed letter of the law care. Almost 500,000 people every year, and 140,000 people a year die from taking pharmaceutical drugs properly. We're not even talking about people that get addicted to oxycodone, which now they've approved for kids, for teenagers,
But
and
it's
300,000 babies are being given.
pharmaceutical circus. It is. It's a pharmaceutical circus,
It
and
is.
it's all around making the dollar, and it will it just by eating healthy, eating and eating right for your type, for your blood type.
Yes.
Um, there's a book about that. It's called Eating Right for Your Type. Um, by I would have to look it up. Doctor. Anyway, I'll send the link for you.
Okay, yeah, that's good. I'll put it on the website. But it's
Yep.
true. You know that 300,000 babies are given psychiatric drugs before the age of 1 in this country? I mean, it's not just about money. I mean, money is the see that's the beauty of their deception, because they've got everybody to think it's all about money. It's not all about money. It's about social control, social engineering. They want the DNA. They want to change our DNA. They want to create a mind that thinks the way they want it to think, that will submit to any and all tyranny and enjoy it. Aldous Huxley
Have you
said it.
have you seen the movie Divergent and Insurgent?
Exactly. 100%. The movies give all the clues. The movies are are the predictive programmers. They show us what's going to happen years in advance. It's funny. I was flipping through the channels the other day, and that movie Total Recall was on. 1990. Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger. It takes place in the
Mm-hmm.
future. Well, guess what? He goes to an airport. You know what he walks through? A naked body scanner. He walks through a device that x-rays him completely. And that was in 1990. So they've been planning this stuff, all of these things, to help us to submit. I mean, if you're going to tell somebody we're going to take all of your wealth over generations and we're going to uh, pharmacologically change your thinking and your DNA so that you accept all of this, people aren't going to really take too kind to that. But if they do it in such a way where they're being entertained and they ask your doctor if cancer is right for you, ask your doctor if all of these side effects are right for you. When they have all of this deception going on and they put the men in the white coats, you believe, because how could they be so evil? How could they be so evil to deceive the population so much?
Mm.
Well,
My suggestion, if you're subscribed to any type of pharmaceutical, is look up on the internet, see what it exactly is for, make sure that what the side effects are, and decide whether you really want to risk that or not, and go to your health foods store or Google on internet and see if there's other natural alternatives.
well, it also comes down to this agenda, this depopulation agenda, because for the most part,
Oh, don't talk to me about that.
why?
Oh, that is now I'm going to make a statement
Go
that
ahead.
now I don't know how many of you are familiar with H negative, rhesus negative blood groups.
The elite blood groups, yes. The elite are
Yes,
mostly Rh negative,
yes.
if not all.
Now, okay, now that covers around about 15% of the world population.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to create a virus, you would probably more likely create a virus that will only affect Rh positive, which would wipe out 85% of the world population.
Mm-hmm.
Just a just a theory of mine,
It happens to be a
an
good
opinion
one.
of mine.
Well, it goes back with the food. If it's not just the diseases or the drugs that cause side effects, including death, cancer, and everything else, it needs to be treated by more drugs that cause more death and side effects. You have the fact that poor people that they claim, oh, we must take all of the money from the wealthy people to feed the poor. This Robin Hood lie. When the fact of the matter is, even if you give the poor food stamps, housing, and you give them welfare and everything else, where do they go shopping? Do they go shopping at Whole Foods, organic produce? No. They go to the low end markets. They go to places like Price Right or other low end supermarkets that have low cost food that is mostly processed, full of GMO, and full of all of these other additives that kill you. Only wealthy people that can afford, listen, are you going to eat a $3 bag of apples or a $10 bag of apples? Well, if you got the money and you know it's healthier to eat the $10 bag of apples, you'll buy the $10 bag of apples. But if you don't have the
Yeah,
money, you're sort of forced to consume poison that will
yeah,
eventually bioaccumulate in your blood, in your body, in your DNA, change your DNA if you do any research on GMO. That's what it actually does, and submit to this, not even realizing. Then when you get heart disease and you get diabetes and high blood pressure, you wonder why. When you're a relatively healthy person, you don't, because everything you're eating is giving you weight gain. It's giving you all of these side effects from the food. Forget about the drugs, the food and the water, the fluoride.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Now,
I don't know how true this is, but did a gentleman get fined for collecting rainwater in the States?
Oh, it's absolutely true. My friend Robert got a $250 fine for collecting rainwater. A guy in Oregon went to jail. I think they put him in 30 days in jail for collecting rainwater. Yeah, it's out of control. A woman in Florida who'd been living off the grid for like a decade, figure this out, that Fox News does a report on her and the whole town goes nuts on her, and they serve her an eviction notice because she's not hooked up to the water, the sewer, or the electric. Can you believe it? She's still fighting them, but this is the mafia that we're living under. You have to be part of it. You cannot be free. Individual freedom does not exist in a
Yeah.
totalitarian socialist society. It just does not.
And is it in some states you can't even grow your own vegetables in your own backyard or even in pots on your veranda?
That's true. It's absolutely unbelievable. It's totally, you talk about human rights. These same internationalists, New World Order, One Worlders, are doing the same thing, not only with just the food, being able to have your own, growing your own food. They've got this whole thing down where they're attacking the makers of these products of organic foods. The FDA raids milk farms, whole milk farm, raw milk farms. Everything is to keep us safe. And everybody nods their heads and say, "Oh yeah, we have to have safe food. Oh yeah, we have to have safe drugs." But they never get any static about the fact that glyphosate, which is in GMO, glyphosate causes all sorts of neurological problems as well as intestinal problems. They don't go into this. But if you're out there trying to awaken people to eat healthy, to not to have GMO food, you become a target. It's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And it's coming to you. If it
Yeah.
hasn't happened yet, it's going to happen there, because everything that happens here happens there, or happens there and happens here. I've noticed that in the several years I've been researching this whole cookie cutter world that we're being given. That anything that happens in the United States ends up happening anywhere else in the where the British Empire rules, because they do. The big lie is that there is no British Empire anymore. The big lie is that there is no Anglo-American establishment. The big lie is that there isn't a cohesive plan to create a one world currency, to create a one world government.
Yeah.
Those are conspiracy theories when they're actually absolute truths. Could read a book by Carol Quigley called Tragedy and Hope, where it's all written there. The Council on Foreign Relations, their plan is to create a one world system controlled by the central banks of the world in a feudalist fashion. And that's what we have. We have neo-feudalism, and it's happening. They want to ban guns, but the agenda is so obvious. They're against guns, but they're for abortion, because guns kill children.
Yep, yep, yep.
It's madness, Ronnie.
I just posted you a basically a community, a global community called Ubuntu.
Mm-hmm.
I posted the link, and that's basically a community that is going to try, or communities, across the global, to cut out the corporates. And their way of thinking is, put in 3 hours a week. Everybody puts in, their trades and builds and try and basically eventually cut out the corporates. I've put the link down there for you to research there.
I will. Thank you.
What I find really stupid is how people get offended by seeing a woman in public breastfeeding her baby, even though she might have a cloth across and not exposing everything, but they find it offensive that she should be in the toilet feeding her baby.
Yeah, well, we live in this ridiculously politically correct world, which is insane. Like I said, I had lost the feed before. I don't know if I got back. I got it back. I don't know if how much of it I lost. So I want to reiterate a couple things. And you have a society where they want to show you sex, sex, sex everywhere. I mean, this isn't anything new. It's just gotten more advanced with the internet and social media and the schools accepting sex education, teaching. Planned Parenthood teaches little girls how to have sex. It tells them. It tells them about anal sex. It tells them about S&M. There's a video I posted on this. It's unbelievable. They caught him undercover. It is a demoralization of our society. And then on the flip side, they'll show you all the sex in the world, but if they're going to show they can't show an aborted fetus, or they can't show breastfeeding, they can't. Oh, that's offensive. Really? It's offensive to who? To what? To what? To morality? Is it offensive? It's offensive. Oh, it's offensive. You can't say anything that hurts anyone else's feelings. Excuse me. Freedom of speech was designed to protect hated speech. You can't create a society based on immoral behavior and then
Yeah.
cry that it's offensive when something moral is exposed, like Planned Parenthood, organ harvesting from still alive fetuses. That's offensive. But it's not offensive for a woman to have an abortion. That's not offensive. Just can't show it. It's bizarre. It's just bizarre. The lack of life, the lack of interest in life, the century of the self. Everybody's all wrapped up in their own bullshit, and they let things happen because it doesn't affect them. Well, ladies and gentlemen, one day all of this will affect someone you love, and there's no doubt about it, because when societies decline, study the Roman Empire. Study the decline of the Roman Empire when they split it between the West and the East. Study what happened. Study how things, they're talking about now having prostitution be legal in many states in the United States. They're trying to get it to be legal. These are all efforts. They're trying to legalize prostitution to keep everyone safe. To keep the prostitutes safe from disease and from abusive pimps. And this is the way they're looking at it. Oh yeah, it's better that they do that. A society cannot survive without morals. It becomes chaos. If it feels good, do it is not conducive to living in a society and getting along with one another. How can you get along with people if anything goes? Really?
Well, look at it over the generations. What was looked upon morally wrong 20, 50, 30, 50 years ago is accepted today. So what's
Exactly.
going to be accepted in the next 10, 20, 50 years?
Well, the church is helping that too. I mean, the church. Look, the Pope, who was a Jesuit, and this is total New World Order. The Pope is saying, listen, let's not worry so much about this gay marriage. Let's not worry so much about abortion. There's other problems in the world. That's the Pope of the Catholic faith. And if you're a Catholic, you're going to be really confused. Because wait a minute, we're supposed to be,
I believe he believes in ETs now.
Oh, well, he believes whatever the elite tell him. Whatever the elite tell him to believe, he takes their position. He's a communist. He is. It's flat out. So they finally got really one of their own. I mean, the last three popes have been their own. They've been in. I mean, it was under Pope John Paul II that the Catholic Church said, okay, it's all right if you can become a Mason and still be a member of the church. I said, really? Oh, that's interesting. So how did that happen?
We'll handshake on that one.
Right. It's unbelievable. And then you think about the Vatican scandal in the 80s, with the P2 Lodge controlling the Vatican Bank and the murders there. Look, let's face it. These institutions have all been corrupted to the point of pure evil. And they use, let's help. We need to spread the wealth. That's what the Pope is saying now. We need to spread the wealth. Why doesn't he start with all of the treasures of the Vatican? Spread the wealth there. Give away all those treasures and feed the people. Feed the hungry people. Why do we have to to reduce our standard of living and or have less take home money because others are suffering? Please. It's a scam. It's a lie. But boy, they use the best people to lie. They use popes. They use presidents. They use kings and queens. Remember when Prince Philip took a bath? They had him on. Not Prince Philip. It was Prince Charles. So for global warming, you should only bathe once a week.
But the Poms are known for that, eh?
Yeah. But I mean, this is the world we're living in, Ronnie, and it's really disgraceful. Hey, are you doing any more radio work, or are you on hiatus right now?
Oh, well, after this conversation, you just might talk me into having another show with you, and there's probably a lot of things that I would like to share of some secrets that being held that make our history just a whole lot of lies.
Well, we've discovered that to be true. So yeah, I would be happy to have you do some work together again and get you going again. It'd be great. Certainly, we did some great shows. They're all out there on my YouTube page and Outside the Margins. All you got to do is Google Outside the Margins, and you'll get she comes up. Ronnie's was well received, and I'm sure you'll still be well received coming back in force. So let's see if we can pull that together.
Yeah, I might have to upload a couple more. Some of them got obviously dobbed into YouTube because our intros were a little bit long, and our intro was "Remember the
Man at Work.
Land Down Under."
Yeah, Men at Work down under. Yeah.
And so some of those interviews have been muted because of the intro and outro. So I might have to re-edit those and then re-upload the ones that have been muted. But there's still some interviews up there until I do that, which is www.youtube.com/MS Ronny B, RONNYB.
Okay, I'll put that on the list as well, on the information on the description of this video and on the website howardnema.com. Ronnie, I want to thank you for a great conversation. We'll have to do this again very soon and see if we can put a show together. It'd be great. And just keep doing what you're doing, and keep getting the information out when you can, and keep researching. Clearly, you're doing that. And again, I wanted to thank you for going on the record here about Truthwar and that whole situation. And then, of course, we spiraled into all the other things, because all of these things actually sort of meet in the middle, don't they? They're all sort of related, aren't they? You know?
Yep. And yeah, that's one thing leads to the other, and that's what we do when we get into our conversations.
Yes. It was wonderful. It was wonderful, and thank you again for your time and for your it's late, I know, over there
it's 12:57 a.m.
Yeah,
so
it's time to go to sleep for you, and it's morning here. Got to go pay the bills. But thank you very much again. I'll send you a full link to this so you can share that over there in Australia and all your people over there. And you'll have a record for yourself as well. And yeah, we'll do this again soon, Ronnie. God bless you. And it's great talking to you again.
And you.
Thank you.
I've really enjoyed it.
It was great. Okay. Brings back a lot of memories, doesn't it?
It does.
All right. We'll do this again soon. And give my love to your better half.
Craig, yeah, I shall do.
And I guess you guys got to hit the hay, so it's good. Until next time, thank you, Ronny Bennic or Ronny Williamson.
Yep, you can call me both.
Okay. From Sydney, Australia, and Outside the Margins.